So this week's question from 1Q9A is, do you think that the future is in apps and the next generation of devices and not in the web? What a strange question to ask a web designer. I wonder what I might answer. Actually, it's a really interesting question, one that I've written about recently on Smashing Magazine, and about the big decision about, do you go for a native app? Do you create a mobile website? Do you go, separate mobile website, or do you go responsive? Do you create a web-based app? What do you do? There are so many options available to you, and it is difficult. And it also depends on when we're talking about the future. What future are we talking about? Are we talking about next week or in 5 years' time? But here's my take on things. I think they've both got their place. I think apps have got their place, and I think the web has got its place. And I don't think the future lies in either. I think it lies in both, and that the two need to work hand in hand. I think the decision of whether to develop a native app or a mobile website mainly comes down to whether the information or the thing that you're trying to deliver is mainly content focused, or is it mainly a task orientated thing. I think tasks tend to work much better as native apps, but if you're delivering large amounts of content, then maybe the web's a better way to go. There's a whole talk here. I've given a talk on this subject before, and I won't get into all the details here, but that's a good rule of thumb. Tasks, native, content, web-based. There's a good starting point. Obviously, there are exceptions to that. For example, if you need to use some of the native features of these mobile devices, such as the camera or the accelerometer, then maybe that's going to lean you towards native apps. But I think there's another important part to this jigsaw puzzle, and that's where the future part of the question comes in. And that relates to whether we will be using native apps over the long term. If you look back at things historically, it used to be a stage where the vast majority of applications that we used were on our computers, were on the physical hard drives of our computers. We used Outlook for email. Today, on the other hand, we may well use Gmail, which is a web-based application for email. We used to use Words. Now we might well use Google Docs. You see that there has been a movement across from desktop-based applications onto the web. And this was largely been due to the arrival of broadband. Now, what we're seeing right at the moment in the mobile sphere is 4G being rolled out. In other words, broadband-type speeds for your mobile device. Once those are in the place, and once we've got powerful processors on our mobile devices that are capable of running much more heavy-duty local web-based applications, I think you'll find a move again towards the web, and more stuff will happen on the web. But just in the same way as we don't do everything in the cloud these days, I think that will be the same for the future of mobile devices. I don't think native apps are going to go away, but I do think they maybe are used for less and less cases, and that the web will be used more and more. Right now, it's a different ball game. Right now, there are, with poor internet connections, with limited functionality in terms of what functionality you can use from the device itself, and various other constraints mean that native apps do have a solid place, and we should be considering them. But the web is really good too. The web is particularly good when you've got limited budgets. And you don't want to be developing separate apps for every single platform and every single device with different screen sizes and all the rest of it. Something like responsive design really comes into play there. So that's my answer to the question. Do you think the future is in apps, next generation devices, and not on the web? No, I don't think that. I think there's a place for both, and we just need to understand when to pick which technology and which route.